Thanks everyone for joining us today, and apologies for the delay. We had a little bit of a technical issue, but all resolved now. Today we have a presentation by Sierra Madre Gold and Silver, who just put out an updated resource on La Guitarra, which is the acquisition they made earlier this year from First Majestic. So looking forward to getting an update on that. There's an incredible increase in the resource. So exciting times for Sierra Madre. As always, this presentation will contain forward-looking statements. If you'd like to know more about those, you can find them on the company's presentation on the website. And there will be Q&A, so feel free to enter some questions in the question box at the bottom of your screen. With that out of the way, I'd like to introduce Alex Langer, CEO, and Greg Liller, COO. Thanks for joining me today, guys.
Thank you so much, Deb. Happy to be here.
Yeah, well, exciting week for Sierra Madre. Much anticipated resource update, which is an important step towards putting La Guitarra back into production, I understand. So yeah, maybe you guys could just give us a little bit of an overview of the results of the estimate.
Sounds great. Yeah, I'll talk high level. I'm sure Greg will get into the nitty gritty in a little bit here. But yeah, so we fully acquired the La Guitarra silver mine, which is fully permitted 500 ton per day facility located about 120 kilometers outside of Mexico City. Since acquiring the mine, we've been pretty diligent in trying to execute and updating the historic NI 43-101 resource report. Historically, there was about 17 million ounces of silver equivalent resources that were there. What Greg and his technical team have done over the last number of months, took quite a bit of work, is audit the underground and combine a number of different databases. There's been over 236,000 meters of drilling at the La Guitarra complex. So really trying to get a better understanding of those geological models, putting them together, and I guess came out recently with a very large resource report, a big increase from the historic numbers. We increased the M&I by about 373% as a silver equivalent and over 204% on the inferred side. So really a big testament to Greg and his technical team.
Thanks, Alex. No, when we bought the project, only two areas were included in the resource base, the Nazareno and the Colosso mines. The rest of the project just basically been ignored. So we combined, as Alex said, several databases, scoured all the files for the historic records, and then approached it with a total project resource idea. And so our big increases came out of the Guitarra mine itself and Mina de Agua, Santa Ana over in the eastern district. The conventional underground resources stand at about 19 million ounces of mineable, and more importantly, about 2.4 million tons. Then on top of that, in a bulk tonnage configuration, we have another, call it 1.4, 1.5 million ounces at around 175 grams equivalent for indicated. We're using a new approach here. It's not new. Both Genco Resources and Silvermex used long hole mining successfully at Guitarra. So we're looking at a lot of mining options here. The average widths within the Colosso veins are only about 1.5, but they're very high grade. Nazareno has a much wider width at 1.34 meters. And the Guitarra mine, the indicated resources average 3.4. So a good deal of this will be amenable to long hole mining. You generally want to have something wider than about 2.5 meters. And that should really cut down on the overall mining cost. And then the bulk tonnage portions, the Los Angeles, that came out of our work back in the Genco days. We'd evaluated the project for open pits. That's no longer doable. But immediately upon acquiring this, we started looking for areas where the mineralization was cohesive enough to support a bulk underground mining, again, with long hole techniques. And we're talking widths in excess of 20 meters at times on this. So we should be able to get some cheap tons really quickly and then use our high grade to blend with it. That's what we're developing a mining plan around right now. The beauty of this project is we're not like a build it from scratch new silver mine. The mill's already built. We're in the process of refurbing it right now. That's going to be at a mere fraction of what a new one would cost. The mining equipment, we found a lot of the stuff on site can be rebuilt, and we're already rebuilding it. So we should be able to achieve a very low capital cost on something like this. And then we have all the old operating records, the cost of reagents, the cost of explosives, the cost of bits, everything that goes into your mining costs. We have documented records of what was actually spent and consumed at the mine. So we'll be able to have a very high level of accuracy in terms of our operating costs. All we'll do is take the amounts and just update them for modern prices. So this isn't a feasibility type build it from scratch project where you're kind of guesstimating your cost based on other operations. We have the operating costs for this operation, and we have a good budget in place for getting everything up and running. So it's going to be a pretty exciting next couple of months getting this stuff put together. We're also evaluating some of the old stope fill material, ratakis they call it. This mine started in, I believe it was 1992, and a company called Lewisman, which became Wheaton River, and has since gone through a lot of morphs to become part of Newmont. Lewisman operated it for, the first 10, 12 years of its mine life. And during that time, gold price was around $350. I think a high in the 90s was $416, and a low late 90s was around $280, even I think maybe $250 at one time. Silver was $4 or $5 an ounce. So their cutoff grades were quite high. And a lot of material that we'd consider high grade today, well over 10 ounces per ton, was used as backfill in the stopes. And so we're evaluating, looking at that material to kind of test everything as we gear up towards production and running that through. So First Majestic also actually did a somewhat detailed, fairly detailed economic evaluation of doing this. And in fact, they were producing from these ratakis for a large part of the last half year of production. So we've got good documented metallurgy on that also. So it's we have a lot of optionalities in this operation that you just wouldn't be afforded if you were starting from scratch.
Greg, you gave a little bit of the history of the mine. Would you mind reminding investors and anyone new to the story what your specific history with La Guitarra is?
Yeah, I don't want to go into too many details. I had started, Genco Resources asked me to come on and run the company. This was after the Ocampo success, and I was actually retired for the first time then. We focused on the Guitarra Mine area itself. At that time, they were producing about 120 tons a day. A small, high-grade operation. It was profitable, but I had bigger plans in mind for that. Let's just say those plans went by the wayside. But I don't think a day went by since I left that I hadn't thought to myself, how the heck can I get this back? And finally, after 15 years, managed to come back to us. We weren't actively looking for it. They came to us. Yeah, anyway, water under the bridge.
That's great. So it's an asset you know well, obviously.
Yeah, and a lot of my team that were with me then have come back. As it turned out, a lot of the people at Guitarra, employed by First Majestic, were there when I was running Genco. And they all knew kind of what my plan had been. They're all on board for restarting the whole mine. So we've got a very well experienced staff and mining geology. Everyone, they've all been there for quite a while. So they know the ins and outs of the mines. The nice thing we have is we're starting from scratch in terms of putting the actual mining people together, the miners themselves, and we'll be able to kind of form our own corporate culture. We're going to be able to build it up from scratch. We've got some new ideas on how to do the conventional mining to cut down on dilution. We had a lot of studies that were done both by First Majestic and former operators that I think we can put those in place now much easier since we are starting from scratch.
And there's skilled labor in the region?
Oh, yeah. The mine was the biggest employer in the Temascaltepec area. In fact, it was the only big employer. So when it shut down, it really impacted the economy, the local economy. A lot of those people have gone on to go to work in other mines, but their families are still there. I know we brought in a gentleman to help us get the plant put back together, and he'll be running the plant when we start operations. Surveyor that knows the mine like the back of his hand. He came back. He had been working, I believe it was in Durango or Sonora. So there's a lot of people that with a lot of experience in this mine that have all expressed a desire to come back. And then the workers themselves, those that have stayed locally have had to take low-paying construction jobs, half the rates as they used to make. So no, that we're not going to have any trouble finding the people that we need to staff up.
And do you think there's exploration potential still on the property?
Oh, yeah. No, we barely started scratching the surface with Genco, and I think we drilled 86,000 meters in around 2 years. I mean, that was a pretty intensive rate of drilling then, but we did drill out the Santa Ana, Mina de Agua area, but that was really about it for the Eastern District. And the Eastern District is where all the old historic high-grade producers were. There was one mine that operated late 1800s, early 1900s that for about 20 years averaged, I think it was 6.5 grams gold and well over 800 grams silver. It wasn't big, it was about 100 tons a day, but I'll take 100 tons a day of that to sweeten the bulk tonnage stuff over from Guitarra. That's kind of the idea here, is to get Guitarra up and running and then start working on the Eastern District so that we'll be able to have production from Guitarra, Coloso, Nazareno, and then ramp up some of the stuff in the Eastern District and look for some of these really sweet high-grade type ore shoots that the old timers were mining, and then blend it all together in order to achieve our goal of being a mid-tier silver producer.
And so in terms of the mine restart plan, the next big catalyst is the mine study. Is that correct?
Yeah, the operation costs. I think we got a pretty good handle on capital startup costs. We're actually putting money into those right now as we speak. So by the time the study's done, the capital needs will be even less. Future forward looking. But yeah, it's just now it's a matter of getting all that data compiled and going out for bids and getting new prices on all the reagents, blasting materials, bits, steel, electricity. I mean, we know how much the mine was consuming in terms of kilowatts when it was in production. So we just plug in the new going rates into that. So.
And when do you anticipate that mine restart plan to be announced?
Into first quarter next year, maybe beginning of the second, but hopefully we can deliver that in a timely manner like we did the resource study. I think we were promising by year end, and we managed to get it out last day of October, first day of November.
That's what the market likes to see, right?
Yep.
Under promise and over deliver, especially on timelines. So in terms of the mine restart plan, is that when investors are going to understand more about life of mine and production profile and things like that? Or is that something that you're able to discuss now?
Yeah, I mean, we're going to do a 5-year plan or a life of mine plan. I mean, right now, if we can get the thing up to 1,000 tons a day, we've got, how many years production was it, Alex? 7?
Exactly.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's out there quite a ways. So I'm not too worried about mine life at this point in time.
Yeah, I think that's one thing that's kind of came to light during this resource report is it's pretty big. So at 500 tons per day, that's an awful long time to be mining small amounts. So we've really started to take the track as a company of looking towards increasing production. So again, the nameplate capacity of the mill is about 500 tons per day. Having said that, there are ways that we see we can increase that to 1,000 tons per day relatively quickly and out of cash flows. And again, with these numbers, we'd be looking to even increase that perhaps to 1,500 tons per day a few years after that. And when you start to add these numbers together, you're starting to build into a mid-tier silver producer. So I think that resource really kind of backpins our ideas with that. Obviously, there's a lot of work to be done before that happens, but it's now giving us more food for thought, let's say, in terms of capacity.
And what production level are you permitted to currently?
There is no cap on it. So it's really just, the mill capacity, which again is rated at 500 tons per day. But what is interesting is flotation cells are actually rated for about 850 tons per day. And we feel those can be increased closer to 1,000. The crusher is good for about 650 tons per day, so even more than the 500. There's ways to increase that, maybe by adding a modular facility. We could add it, beside the current one or even underground. And then finally, the grinding circuit. It's ball mills. There's multiple of them. It's rated for about 500 tons per day right now, but we've been pricing out newer units. And we feel we could bump that up to 1,000 tons per day on the grinding circuit for about $500,000 US. So we're not talking about a huge amount of capex to go in, but the output should be quite a bit higher.
Sounds like some interesting upside scenarios for you. Going back to putting La Guitarra back into production. So the mine restart plan is one step along the path. Maybe you could outline timelines and what other steps need to occur before we can see some production and cash flow from the asset.
Yeah. So the mine plan is obviously number one, mine restart plan. And as Greg had mentioned, it will go into costing into quite detail. We really want to understand where we're going to be mining from. The last thing you ever want to do is start production and ever stop. The market absolutely hates that. So again, we want to walk before we run. So about a month ago, we did announce that if capital is available and all goes well, we can see commercial production starting in Q1 of 2025. But there is a possibility that could be accelerated depending on how well the mine plan comes forward. Again, we were a couple months early with the resource, so again, that could be earlier. There are other options of getting the mine up and running and then pushing towards commercial production. We will be starting at a smaller scale anyway, kind of 300 to 350 tons per day, and then gradually moving up to commercial production of 500.
And you said fully permitted. Fully permitted could still mean waiting on 2 permits. Is there anything that you're waiting on? Anything that you require from the government to move forward with production?
No, we can start right now with wet tailings deposition. We are looking into converting to dry stack, which is environmentally much more friendly. And it also would allow us to use the existing tailings facility. We're also permitted to deposit tailings underground. So we'll be looking at kind of combinations of all the above on that. But no, we can get started with the permits that we have in hand. There's awaiting getting the mill fixed up to do that. So.
And it sounds like you have a pro-mining and a mining experience community. Are there any Indigenous groups in the area, and how are relationships with those?
This part of Mexico, you don't have Indigenous groups per se. It's not like there's, I don't know what the right word is, tribal entities, if that's allowable to be said anymore. But it's not that sort of situation. Our relations with the community, the various communities involved, are very good right now. Our relationships with the local governments are very good. I was fortunate enough to be able to rehire my former our community relations person there, and he's kind of put that team back together. And so prior to this, like I said, I'd been trying to think how to get this back for a long time, and I'd stayed in touch with he in turn had stayed in touch with all his local contacts, so that when we took this on, we knew we were in pretty good shape as far as that goes.
And First Majestic did an amazing job of community relations. Obviously, they're mid-tier, an amazing company. So they're, everything from permitting to environmental work to water treatment was really top notch. So they've had an incredible relationship with the community. And the only thing we're getting from them is pressure to get up and running as soon as possible. So it's a great place to be.
Yeah, I should add that one of the things First Majestic did was that the Colossal mine does need to be dewatered. I forget, we're pumping around a couple thousand liters a minute there, depending on the season. But that in turn has developed an entire orchard, peach and avocado orchard industry downstream utilizing that water. And they did a lot of groundwater research and a study in conjunction with the University of Mexico State on the groundwater there and the advantages to the community. So that's really helped. And we're looking at expanding on that also, helping some other communities with water.
Awesome. Well, I've run out of questions to ask. Alex, Greg, was there anything else about the resource that you wanted to discuss or anything that we didn't cover today?
Not from my end. I think it's a really big milestone for the company. It's something we had gone out right away. We saw we could add value to the shareholders, and we're able to execute on a timely fashion, which is always positive. As Greg mentioned, we feel this is one of the largest undeveloped silver districts in Mexico. So for us, it's really just a start in terms of resource, if all goes well, and a number of catalysts moving forward. So of course, the mine restart plan is going to be the main one. We do have results of the SRK tailings options coming forward as well, which will be coming out hopefully before the end of the year. And we'll just continue to provide updates as the mill gets fixed up, as new equipment gets fixed up. So we're going to be busy. We're definitely not stopping in the meantime, that's for sure.
We did have an audience question. Somebody's helping me out there. Do you guys plan on increasing the tons per day, seeing as you have the resource capacity?
Absolutely. So yeah, we kind of answered that question already, but that is absolutely the goal. It's kind of made us rethink everything we're doing and looking to increase production. But again, we do want to walk before we run. So we'd start at a lower capacity, move it up to 500, and then I think accelerated to 1,000 quite quickly, again, out of cash flows. And then if all goes well, up to 1,500, which really, starts to tick a lot of boxes, especially in the capital markets.
And especially at current silver prices.
That's the other thing. Silver pricing today, $22, $23 is extraordinarily attractive for us. That's one of the reasons why we are so, hell bent on getting back into production quite quickly. But again, we want to make sure we're doing it properly. But at today's prices, it is very, very attractive for us.
Great. Well, that's it from me. Thanks to everyone that participated. If you'd like to book a one-on-one call, feel free to reach out, or if you have any questions you'd like answered. Thanks, Greg and Alex, for taking the time to give us an update, and congratulations. Great resource estimate. And Greg, congratulations. You got back the one that got away.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.